benefits for veterans. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bring on a gentleman that has a lot of experience in assisting veterans in getting their benefits. And I know we had received some inquiries about information pertaining to the burn pits. And I figured I'd go directly to the subject matter expert. It's relatively new, some of the things that are happening. But one thing about it, if we don't know all the information, I'm sure that we can find out what we need to find out. So I'd like to introduce to you guys Mr. Dominique Williamson, a Veterans Administration claims agent that's helping people do a lot of good things in their lives and helping the veterans move on and move forward. So without further ado, Dominique, you have the floor.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about this serious and topic that so many veterans have been affected by that don't know how to get the proper education to get the help that they need. So once again, I do thank you for what you're doing. I applaud you for your efforts. I want to just briefly cover, and I'll just give you the quick agenda. I want to talk about the definition and to identify what a burn pit is and what airborne hazards are. I want to talk about, the qualifying locations, the conduct, and the dates to get compensation, because that is important, in order for you to get your compensation. And the last things that we'll cover, will be the presumptive conditions, as well as learning how to get registered through the burn pit registry with the VA. So the first thing that we want to just really talk about is just the definition. I'm going to read it verbatim. What is a burn pit and what airborne hazard? It said that the large areas of land in which the military and its contracted incarcerated all waste generated by military bases, including plastics, metal, rubber, human waste, and other materials. So that's the really consists of. And for those of us that served in the military, we understand that during deployments, one of the things that we did was we got placed alignments, to get rid of, that we just did not have the appropriate landfills to put them into. So we found ourselves having a bunch of diesel gas fuel and burning all these different waste materials. But while we were burning, we were ingesting, this material. And as we start these, harsh chemicals, start affecting these over the years, and people started having different issues, and we could none from. Lastly, the airborne hazards, and I'll give you just some of it. It just talks about, different contaminants, that we were exposed to, such as smoke, fumes, sand, dust, air pollution, fuel aircraft, and the exhaust, as well as smoke from fires and wells. So the combination of the burn pit and the airborne hazards that we were exposed to, have led to a lot of different disabilities that veterans and their family members, have come in contact with over the years. The unfortunate part about the burn pits, I'm going to give you just a quick history of some of the presumptive disabilities. Probably heard of the term Agent Orange or Agent Orange exposure. So this was what had took place when Vietnam veterans were exposed to certain herbicides, and they coming up with cancers, diabetes, pension, and there's a myriad of list of disabilities that we found veterans coming up. And after a while, the VA, can only mask things for so long before it becomes evident that it was because certain people was in certain room that was certain abilities, and then finally, after years, they finally said we're going to give these presumptive disabilities to veterans, and they put in certain categories. So some disabilities based off of years. If you got out the military between year 1 to year 3, you can get it. But if you got that disability before, you couldn't get it. Disability, it didn't matter how long after you got out, that disability, if you came up with it, throughout your lifespan, you can get it. And these disabilities are continually progressing. So just because you may have only had 5 disabilities 10 years ago doesn't mean that that 5 disabilities is going to be the same. And it's the same thing with the burn pit registry and they just came out certain disabilities that they say are presumptive to anyone that was in certain locations. And I'm going to give you the locations as well as the conflicts. And these dates are very important because if it was manifested within a 10-year after you got out of this particular area, then it would be considered presumptive. And the reason why it's important is because most of us, let's say we got out today and we're having some issues, but we've been taught as military members to suck it up and drive on. That term that so many people have heard. So we may have gone to the doctors without a diagnosis, and if you got a diagnosis at 10 years, a day later, and now you have a diagnosis based off the criteria that the VA have given. It says that it has to be within 10 years after you got out, not 10 year, one day, not 11 years. So this is why it is so utterly important for anyone that was, and I'm going to give you the regions in a second, that was in any one of these conflicts to go and get the diagnoses. That way, if you have these issues, you had the diagnosis within the 10-year, and when you get ready to file for disability benefit, you will be granted benefit because within the criteria. So the locations that the burn pit recognized are Afghanistan, Djibouti, Syria, Uzbekistan. It had to have been from September 19, 2001 to present day. That's for those areas. The second one is the Southwest Asia Theater of Operation, and that is Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the Gulf of Aden, the Gulf of Oman, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and the waters of the Persian Gulf, Arabian Sea, and the Red Sea. And the dates are August 2nd, 1990 to present day. And then the conflicts are Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Operation New Dawn, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Iraq Operation Enduring Freedom. So those are the conflicts and those are the areas. And the reason why that is important is because if you were in those areas and were exposed to a type of chemicals through the burn pits, you can find benefits. The problem that and I speak, I'm a year vet myself. I've been to different places that on this list. I was down in Honduras, narcotics in Honduras, Lebanon. So you were in certain places that may have been chemicals and hazards because it is not disqualify you for getting it. Do not get discouraged because squeal gets the grease. And
Hey, Dominique,
let people know
don't
that
mean to
you're having
interrupt you,
the issues
but
because you were stationed in this area. Go ahead.
yeah, you're really breaking up. Is there any possible way you can move closer to your Wi-Fi? Because you're really breaking up, and you're putting out some very vital information that I want them to definitely hear. So you're breaking
Yes.
up really bad.
Okay.
So
Let me
if
move
you can
to a different location.
yeah, we can pause.
Yes.
We can
I'll
pause just
move
for
to
now.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
How was that now? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, great. So as I was saying, do not get discouraged because you may not have been in one of these areas, but you are experiencing some of these situations based off of your MOS and based off of, some of the job hazards that you may have been exposed to. Because, like I said before, I use this quote: the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Mhm.
So if enough of us continue to say we're having these problems, and when they do their survey and their research, and they see that, this particular MOS or this particular region, whether it be stateside or elsewhere, these are the consistent problems that these veterans are having, then they can create a new disability based off of that region. So you've probably heard of the toxic water that's up in North Carolina. So we have these, but the only reason why we knew about it was because certain people was drinking that water at that location, came up with certain disabilities. So what you want to do is always be very transparent with your medical team and your medical staff, and let them know what's going on. And eventually, it may not happen to you, but you're still opening the door for the future generation.
Right.
And this is why it is so important to constantly, tell what's going on with you. Now, we talked about the generic definition, the presumptive qualification. Now, what I want to talk about is, the presumptive disabilities, that came from this burn pit registry. We have asthma, we have rhinitis, and we have sinusitis. Now, if you have any one of these conditions and you were there in those locations, it is very important that you file a disability claim, because based off of the presumptive disability, you will get a percentage, and if the VA tries to fight you, I recommend that you get a qualified VA representative that knows the law, and they will be able to win it very quickly for you. Uh, and I'll give a quick testimony. This was dealing with a young man that had prostate cancer, Air Force gentleman. He was exposed to a lot of different chemicals, because of his MOS. 30 plus years later, he comes down with prostate cancer. He was never in Vietnam, so he did not qualify for the presumptive. So when he applied for it, he got denied. Someone told us about his story, so we said, what can we do to help him? I looked over his files, wrote a Nexus letter. And for those that don't know what a Nexus letter is, a Nexus letter is just a letter from a qualifying physician in that field that can show how something can lead to something else, and that letter bridges the gap. So what I did was look at his MOS and look at all of the chemicals and petroleum that he was exposed to, did a background research to find out, can these particular chemicals lead to any type of cancer. It just so happened that several of them can lead to his cancer. Wrote a letter, sent it to his oncologist. His oncologist reviewed it, put his signature behind it. Then we turned right back around, submitted the same paperwork, but this time it had the strength of the oncologist saying, I believe it is at least as likely as not that these chemicals could lead to this cancer. Once that happened, the gentleman had 100%. They had to back pay him several years. Needless to say, he was a happy camper because he
I'm
had a
sure he was.
whole lot of
Yeah.
zeros behind his name.
Yeah.
you know, but it can be very discouraging when you don't have that help.
Hmm.
And so whenever we're having these type of issues, it is utterly important, that we seek out the appropriate help to bridge that gap so that we can get what's rightfully belongs to us. So, like I said, what the VA has come up with, and like I said, this is going to be a running list. So you may have something that's going on with you right now, and it's not on this list. Do not get discouraged, because this is an ongoing process. So right now, asthma, rhinitis, and sinusitis, those are the three disabilities that can be extracted from the burn pit if you were exposed to it. And lastly, I'm gonna say this, and then we'll do a free for all, as I call it. The last thing that I want to bring out is, how do you register for the burn pit? And I'll give the website. So you can go to www.publichealth.va.gov/exposures /burn pit registry.asp. And you can also call the VA at the toll free number, which is 1-800-827-1000. And if you do that, that would allow you to speak with someone that's qualified to handle this matter and at least get registered for the burn pit. That way, if anything was to happen to you down the road, you're already registered in it and you've taken the first and most important step in order to get your benefits. Now, at this point, I'm going to turn it over. I guess we can do the question and answers or any question that you may have so that I can answer them.
Wow, that's a lot of information. And I tell you, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who had no clue or idea as to how to go about accomplishing this mission here, and as far as getting you registered as well as a claim, because a lot of people probably never even thought about it. I think we've heard something of late briefly, but they didn't go into detail. And I think with this portion here, you have given us an opportunity to broaden our horizons and our knowledge as far as what we need to do to accomplish that mission. And when it comes to something like that, so you said it doesn't matter how far back, as far as the brevity of time or the length of time, it still will go into effect, and you'll still get a log number and somehow go ahead and move forward with this claim. Is that correct?
Now they gave you a 10-year from the time of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So once you've gotten out of the military, you're on a 10-year time clock to be able to get a diagnosis. Now, if you get a diagnosis within 10 years, but you don't file a claim for the next 100 years, you will still be qualified for the benefit. But you have to get the diagnosis, though, within 10 years after getting out. And one more thing that I like to bring up, even though there are only three qualifications right now of disabilities, one thing that you also have to remember, there are what is called secondary conditions. So for instance, with sinusitis and rhinitis, you can secondary sleep apnea to it. And the same thing with headaches. If you have sinusitis or rhinitis, you can secondary headaches because sinus headaches can lead. So there's a lot of secondary disabilities that you can get. Uh, and one thing that a lot of people don't pay a lot of inventory to are the secondary conditions that we can qualify for, because those secondary conditions can yield a lot of percentage. And let me give a quick example, even though this is not dealing with burn pit, but it's the same ideology.
Mm-hmm.
I had a gentleman that he served in the military. And I know some people are going to get mad because they served plenty of years, and this guy only served 18 months in the military. He did not complete his first tour of 2 years. He was a cook, and they gave him a general discharge because he could not adapt to the military life. He ended up getting out of the military. This is in 1981. I met this gentleman 2 years ago. He's now 100% permanent total. Most people are saying, how in the world can someone that served less than 2 years got put out on their general discharge because he could not adapt? How did that happen? So let me explain. It's all about secondary conditions. There's a disability called tinnitus, which is the ringing in the ears. There is no testing for tinnitus. So if you can't test me to tell me if I have it, how can you deny me of something? Because every military personnel was exposed to loud noise, because we all went to basic training. We all pulled up that M16 and we all shot it. So that first bullet was enough to cause tinnitus. We took it to court. The court has gave a precedent to tinnitus, and the precedent states that the veteran's lay testimony is strong enough to qualify him or her for tinnitus. So we ended up getting the guy tinnitus. Now, tinnitus only maxes out at 10%. Mm-hmm. So where did that additional 90% come from? Secondary conditions. So tinnitus led to vertigo. It led to having headaches. It led to him dealing with insomnia because the ringing in the ears kept him awake, and ultimately led him to having depression because his quality of life went down. He went and spoke with his doctor. His doctor referred him to his counselor. The counselor connected him with the psychologist. And from there, within a year and a half process, they wrote up the appropriate document. When we filed a claim, they gave them 100% permanent total based off of depressive symptomology as a secondary to tinnitus. So I say all that to say this: every veteran that has ever put the uniform on and have served their country, which we are the 1/10 of the 1%, we all can qualify for tinnitus. And if we qualify for tinnitus, there's a lot of secondaries that we can get that can ultimately help our quality of life and to help our families' quality of life. So never get discouraged. So going back to the burn pit, these three disabilities, there are a lot of secondary conditions that can be manifested from this disability that can ultimately take your quality of life and financial status to a better place.
Wow, that's a very good analogy. I'm so grateful for what you do for
Yes,
the
sir.
veterans. And like I said, I come across veterans just about every day, and I see so many of them, and that's why I am so eager to jump on and get the knowledge to become a certified agent as well, because
Yes,
I
sir.
know there are probably a lot of people that need a lot of help and not enough people to help them. Typically, because they're turned away so many times, they basically get discouraged and they decide to not to pursue it. And what happens is ultimately is they just ride off into the sunset and they never ever come back to it. And that's one of the things that's given me the inspiration to do it. And
Yes, sir.
because I've seen what you've done and how many people you've helped, and I'm telling you, I put your name out there like every day. So because your record stands for itself. You have a lot of integrity. You speak what is actually is the truth, and you help people when you're dedicated, and that's a wonderful thing. It's hard to find. So getting back to the burn pit,
Yes, sir.
the last two things that you said, I can't pronounce them. Um, if a service member has been disconnected from the service and no longer around the military installations, how do they convey that to a civilian physician? And how do they know if they have that or not?
Okay. So, the good thing about the disability is you're going to start having some type of symptoms. So, for instance, with the asthma, if you find yourself wheezing, and you're having difficulty breathing, the first thing I'll tell you, even if you're not close to a military base, just go to any physician, because it does not have to be a military related or VA medical practitioner. Mental health, health is health. So any doctor that is qualified can give you a diagnosis, but we have to have you know, the uh, the foresight to go forward and let them know that we're having these problems. And so if you're having difficulty breathing, wheezing, shortness of breath, go get it checked out. And based off of them checking out, you should get a diagnosis. The same thing if you find yourself, you know, your eyes getting puffy a lot, difficulty breathing, even when you blow your nose, if you're blowing, mucus of blood coming out, that's an indication that you're having sinusitis or rhinitis. Get it checked out. Once you get it checked out and they give you a diagnosis, that diagnosis is the clock that starts your benefit. Because like I said, since this is a presumptive disability, the VA is basically saying that if you were in X position and received Y condition, based off of what we have come up with in our research, we have already presumed that the reason why you're having this Y condition is because you're in X location, and we are obligated to give you a benefit for it and take care of you. So now, just because that's written doesn't mean that's what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because you can have all of the knowledge of based off of what the VA said, have the diagnosis, then get happy, run to the VA, file you a claim, and then when the claim is filed, someone that is at that CMP examination says that they don't believe that your condition is related to your military service. Now, the problem is most of the people that you go to, because the VA has contracted their compensation and pension examination to one of three agencies. You have LHI, QTC, and VES, those three agencies. A lot of time, none of those individuals have ever worn the suit or the uniform. So when you're telling them about this, they're looking at it like, okay, you have sinuses. It's probably coming because of the pollen in the air in Georgia. So we're going to deny you based off of that. But because the VA has given a presumptive clause, you have the right to go back and petition, whether it's through an appeal, notice of disagreement, a higher level review, or submit new and material evidence and do a supplemental claim. And if you do that, I guarantee that you will win it. You may lose it on the first go around, but I promise you, you will win it on the second or possibly even the third go around, because the system was designed to help you. Uh, I didn't realize that until years after doing this, that the system actually is designed to help you, but it's the people within the system that may not know the
Right.
laws of the system
Right.
that clogs up the benefits from coming to you, but the system is designed for you. You know, there's a clause, and right now I've been to several court cases with representing clients, and to this day, I'm 100% successful. Now, that's not saying that I'm that good. I would never give myself that much credit.
Right.
But what I would say is the fact that I've learned the law, and the law is designed to help the veteran. And so, if we understand the law and we go to court and we fall in what is called the reasonable doubt clause, and
Mhm.
reasonable doubt just simply states that if you have two conflicting medical opinion, by reasonable doubt, the law must. It didn't say it may. It says it must go to the veteran. So the only thing that we have to do is present reasonable doubt for every case. You know, if our doctor says yes and the VA doctor says no, we will always win the case when we go before the judge, because the law is there for us. But we
Mhm.
sometimes get discouraged and we want to throw our hands in the air and say, you know, I don't want to deal with this no more. And if you don't mind, can I share my story, how I got into
Yeah,
this?
please
Okay.
do.
So the reason why I got into this, business, I was in the military. I was a Black Hawk personnel, Black Hawk helicopters enlisted. I was fast tracking. I made E8 in 13 years, so you couldn't tell me I wasn't going to be the next
Wow.
sergeant major of the army. You know, at my first look for E9, I was in Afghanistan. A rocket flew over, and the rocket was nowhere close to me. So I don't want to give the illusion like the rocket was going to kill me. The
Right.
rocket was nowhere close to us, but we heard the whistle of the rockets, and protocol says find shelter. So I jumped into the bunker. Someone else jumped into the bunker, landed on my leg. Uh, didn't think nothing of it. I was a master fitness trainer, first sergeant at the time. So the next morning, guess what we do? Time for PT. We got up,
Mhm.
we did PT. I did this for about 2 weeks, and my calf from that injury just kept swelling and swelling. So finally, I decided to go to sick hall. I went and spoke with the nurse, and I wish I could find her right now because she saved my life. End up having a blood clot in my lung. I mean, excuse me, in my leg that traveled to my lungs. So I had two blood clots in my lungs, and one was affecting my heart. I should be dead. So they medevaced me out. I went to Bagram. They basically told me that I was going to die. So I asked them for a telephone so I could call my wife and kids to tell them I love them and I won't make it home. And that was the conversation that I had with my wife and my
Mm.
daughters. So thank God I'm still here. So I believe this is the purpose why He kept me alive, to do this type of work. Fast forward, I flew back uh, to uh, to Germany, launched to, stayed there for a few weeks, got stabilized, and they flew me back to Fort Hood, Texas. My family was here in Georgia, so they flew my family over there because I was still not sure. They were still not sure if I was going to live. They stayed with me for about 2 weeks, and then they went back, and then they put me in what is called the WTB Warrior Transition Battalion. So that's where all the wounded soldiers go. They happened to have a WTB here in Fort Benning, so they did a WTB to WTB transfer and moved me back to Fort Benning because I had my support network here.
Mhm.
Uh, they kept me in the med board. Now, back then, you could stay in the med board for a long time. Now, 90 days, 120 days, they're pushing you out. I was in the med board for almost 3 years. When they finished my med board, it was 19 years and 7 months. And then they told me, they said, First Sergeant, you did not make 20 years. You're 5 months short. So you cannot retire. you know, I'm Jamaican, right? So a few choice
Yes.
words. I
Yes.
said I said some things that Jamaican temper came out. But while I was getting upset, I'm thinking about I missed the birth of my daughter. I missed multiple birthdays, missed anniversaries, missed so many different things for the sacrifice. And now I almost died because I'm sacrificing. And you're telling me that because I got injured, I cannot get 5 more months to retire. And so there was a young lady by the name of Nancy Carlisle. She pulled me to the side and she said, "We do have a program. It's called COAD, Continuation on Active Duty. And it states that if you have 15 years, but less than 20 years, and you've been found medically unfit, you can apply for this program. And if you get accepted, they must keep you until your 20th year." She was the regional director, and she's like, "I will not let them do this to you." I applied. She signed it, sent it to her boss. He signed it. It came back down, and I was able to serve my 20 years. So I ended up serving 20 years, 2 months, and 22 days, and I retired on Christmas morning, 2012.
What a
you know,
gift.
you know, my Christmas
What a
present to
gift.
myself. And I tell you, and the reason why I got into this program was because I was so deflated. I was so depressed, because now I'm thinking, how am I going to take care of my family?
Hmm.
I'm the breadwinner, but now I'm so injured that my wife had to quit her job to become my caregiver. So we went from having two checks to one check, which is now going to be a half of a check. And so all of these thoughts are going to my mind. And then when she said, "We have this program," the light bulb went on. You have a program. How many more programs does someone have
Right.
that we don't know about?
Right. Right.
So I said, "Okay, y'all got a program, huh?" I'm gonna find out all of these programs. And so once I retired, trying to get back on the job force, a friend of mine, Holly Robinson, well, my colonel that I knew Holly, and Holly worked at Pratt and Whitney. So based off my resume, I was going to get a job starting at roughly 95,000 a year, which is pretty good money,
Hmm.
But I came back home and I looked my wife in the eyes and said, "Baby," I said, "I just don't have the joy to work at Pratt and Whitney. I feel that my calling is to do what I'm doing." And so the Wounded Warrior Project, they had what was called the Advocacy Training Program. I
Hmm.
applied for it, got accepted. I basically went TDY down to Jacksonville, Florida. They sent me to law school to the Florida Coastal School of Law just to learn the VA law portion. From there, they taught us everything about VA regulation, how to file claims. We went up to New York, worked with the regional office up there for a little bit, came back down and graduated. Once I graduated, I started this program, and to date, we've helped over 3,500 veterans and brought back over $20 million back to their pockets. So I say it again,
I'm talking about.
over 3,500 veterans and brought back over $20 million back to their pockets. To show you the level of dedication that we have, this past week, and I just got back from a veterans event up in right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, which is an 8-hour drive from me and to
Mhm.
here. So I drove my own gas, paid for my own hotel, brought several claims, hand carried them, and walked away with 4 people getting 100% on the
Ooh,
spot.
come
And I
on.
got an additional 3 that will get their 100% this week. And so I say this, and whenever you do find some help, make sure you find someone that's just not qualified, but someone that's dedicated to the cause, that's willing to stay awake at night to study, and is willing to drive several hours. When we got there, the lady looked at me. She said, "You actually came from Fort Benning, Georgia, and you didn't bring none of your veterans, but you brought their files and you represent them." She said, "We're supposed to only do one person per time, but because you did this, how many people you got? I'm gonna
Wow.
do all of your
That's what
folks."
I'm talking about.
You know, and so now several lives have just gotten changed because I haven't even called them yet to let them know. I said I'm
Oh
gonna call them.
man.
Yeah, so I'm gonna call them on Monday, and I'm gonna tell you what I normally do. I'll call them and say, "Hey, you got a rating," and I'm gonna let you know it wasn't what we expected. You know, uh, the VA, they gave you 100% permanent total, and I'm not sure why they did that. And so they only hear the first part was you
Right.
got a bad rating, and then I say, "Yeah, they gave you 100% permanent total," and I'm not sure why they did that. And as I'm talking, they say, "What you say?"
Yeah, that is
but
wonderful.
but I tell you, it's a good feeling, man. But like I said, but if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be who I am right now. And I believe that, Sometimes, you have a trajectory of life where you want to go, but God said, nah, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in it. I'm going to anoint you and I'm going to send you somewhere else. And I believe this is why, we're doing what we're doing. And you just mentioned about being a claims representative. We're training new claims representatives. I got 3 now, and I got a few more in the category. And I only allow people to fall under our group that has the same passion and the same drive that I have. It's not about trying to make no money. Even though you can make some money in doing this business, I will not lie about that. But it's all about taking care of the veteran and their family, because when you change someone's life and you get that phone call saying, I was homeless, and because I'm now 100%,
Yeah.
I can get my apartment, I can get me a place to live. You see, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, I love your dedication, and I think that's just the one thing that I always do, because I hear soldiers and I hear things that they're going through, and sometimes I guess you can call it you're hustling, but I'm always listening for certain things, and I always take their information, and I always provide your information. I'm sure you probably heard of a lot of people that I've referred to you. That's what I do, because I know I was in a situation similar to yours, not
Yes.
quite as near death like yours was, but I had literally given up. And I was like, okay, so I was in Wiesbaden, Germany, and the guy was like, have you served in the military? Yes. I was retired. Yes. You got disability? I'm like, man, what, $500 a month? Man, I'm good. He says, no, you get more than that. I'm like, okay, if you say so. He says, well, I tell you what, let's take a look at what you have. I said, man, I submitted this thing like 9 times and it's got disapproved. I said, I don't want to waste your time because I know I'm not going to get anything. He said, well, okay, well, let's sit down and go through it. His name was Mr. Dale Nagin. I'll never forget, civilian. And we sat down. I gave him everything. And at the same time, unfortunately, my wife was going through breast cancer, double mastectomy, and she was really sick, terminal. So I had 6 months. I was 9 years and 6 months. And he told me that he was going to go ahead and push my through. And I said, well, wait a minute. I have a wife that has this situation and this, and this. He said, well, let's get her in immediately because we can get her done, right quick. And I'm like, yeah, okay, if you say so. And they did. They got her stuff squared away within, must have been 3 months.
Wow.
And she actually got 100% disability and 100% compensation. So you know what that means. Yeah. So and a lot of people, they're not aware of that. They'll think that when you get 100%, you're finished. And I said, well, actually, it's more than that. But you have to know how, and it has to be something that's really specific. But you got to know the people that knows how to do it, cross the T's and dot the I's, because if not, if they drag their feet, it's not going to happen. So I was very, very grateful and thankful to Mr. Nagin. And I tried to, give him some type of accolade, and he was just he's like, nope, this is what I do. It's not about that. I said, but Mr. Nagin, he says, no. He says, now let's get yours done. And he came back, and I got my first look, and I came back at 80%. And he did almost the same thing you did. He says, well, I got some good news and got some bad news. I said, okay, well, what's the bad news? Give me the bad news first. He said, well, it's not 100%. And I said, yeah, okay, well, 10, 20%. He said, no, it's not quite that low. I said, okay. And he said, well, actually, you are a disabled veteran. You did get compensation, and you got 80%. And so I was surprised. I was like, what? 80%? And he said, and by the way, you're going to get back pay. He said, your back pay is going to go back to when you first submitted, and so on and so forth. My first check was $25,000. I was blown away, totally blown away, because I had no idea, no clue that could even happen. However, it did take me another almost 15 years to get my last 20%, but it was worth it. It was definitely worth it. And like I said, because of Cecil, of course, and his wife, who turned me on to you. And I had already been doing the process and doing my homework and just listening to what they were saying and just crossing the T's and dotting the I's and applying it. And so I had already had a couple of things that were already in and being, and the appeals were in progress. And just like when I contacted you and you told me, well, let's let that come back first, and then we'll go from there. And that's what I did. And like I said, because of the interaction, communication, and the positive attitude that he gave me to get in touch with you and reach out to you. And your, is it your wife that answers the phone when she? Yeah. Because of your words and the way that you guys guided me through the process, that helped me a lot. It helped me so much. And that's the most I had received in 15 years, literally. And I mean, and after that, I said, you know what? This is legit. This guy is good. And this family is good. And this is whom I want to fall under the auspice of so that I can help those that need the help as well. Because I think that tutelage and the training and the mentorship that I can have that will convey further down to those soldiers that need it, I'm willing to go through the process and whatever it takes. And I'm looking at possibly coming out maybe in July of this year or September to actually finish retiring for good. I'm working with a company right now and supplying some support to the major hospitals here. It's a good thing. I'm still serving in a different capacity, but it's labor, it's intensive, and I'm tired of doing that. I'm getting too old for that. Down on the floor working on these electronic machines and so on and so forth. I need to back away from that. I just want to focus on helping those that need the help that we can provide to them. And like I said, because of you and Holly and so on and so forth, I'm telling you, it's just been a blessing. By the way, we had her on the last one, Sergeant Major Holly's wife. Instrumental, beautiful person. I tell you, she is very knowledgeable, subject matter experts. You guys are doing so much for so many people. The numbers speak for themselves, but the numbers are not the thing that stands out the most. The fact that you have a place in your heart for helping people, that's the most important thing. And I think that's something that most people can see, the sincerity, the integrity. And that's the one thing that drew me to you. And that's why I wanted you to be a part of this, because I want to take this podcast and make it a bigger event. And my son, obviously, what he does, and I definitely want to give thanks to Nine Dime Productions for him doing the podcast. And he does everything that he can for those that he possibly can, and he's willing to help. This is just the servitude, and I appreciate that because it's given me the opportunity. I had I gave my time in the military. My wife gave her time. I had a son. He just passed away July of last year. 19 years, 6 months, died from a massive heart attack. And of course, 6 months from retirement, but we don't know all the ramifications of everything that happened, and we're still getting reports and things back from the investigation. I want to pursue that as best as I possibly can, because to get that close and not make it, it bothers me. It bothers me mentally, and it bothers me in my heart to know that you got that close and didn't finish. And so I don't know what else, but we'll talk offline furthermore about that. But I just want to say, on behalf of all the service members, regardless of the branch that you serve, I want to tip my hat to you and give you all the accolades and thank you for having the due diligence, the drive, the determination, and going forward and doing what you do for every veteran. Every veteran. I mean that from my heart. And like I said, every time I have spoken to you and we've communicated, and with your wife, I have felt nothing but sincerity the entire time, and it makes me feel and know in my heart that that's what it's all about. By default, you get compensated, but your heart is in the right place, and God has put you in a place such as this for a time like this to do what you're doing for those veterans and service members. And the blessings, you can't count them enough. I'm telling you, you're going to continuously be blessed for the rest of your life, you and your family, to generations down, and it's going to continue to flow. And I truly thank you for it. I know you're a busy person. I know you got a lot going on, but now I know that you're Jamaican too, man. We got other things in common, man. So we really got to get together, man, and hang out and do some things, So that's a wonderful thing. But today is, of course, a day of rest on a Sunday. But like I said, I appreciate you taking time from your family to get on the podcast and give us this vitally important information. And this is going to reach out to some other people. And I'm going to chime in with you as often as I possibly can. If there's anything that I can do for you, you let me know. I'm here for what you need me for. Just let me know. But I do want you to know that I'm looking to be getting certified in the next year or two, so I can roll out of this thing and keep on doing what we do, man. Because this is a wonderful thing. It's been in my heart. It's been on my heart for a very long time. I've always had that servitude in my heart as well, and I love giving back to people. And just by default, it just happens to come back to me as well. So I thank you so very much, Dominique, for what you do. Continue doing what you do, man. Continue teaching people and continue mentoring us to do better and do things that we possibly can for those that's to come behind us. Now, one other quick question right quick. If I run across someone that has had no contact with the VA whatsoever and he needs help, how do I go about that and making sure that he gets to the proper facility, proper location, and getting the proper documents to get at least started and into the system?
Okay, so there's two things that I would recommend. Number one is to do an intent to file. You can have them if they do not have a e-benefits account. Tell them to go ahead and try to do one ASAP because that'll be the easiest way of doing it. If not, you can download the intent to file form. You can just Google VA form intent to file. And the reason why that is important, you mentioned about your back pay. An intent to file is what lets the VA know that you're planning on filing a claim, and you have 12 months to file that claim, and they will honor the date of the intent to file. So that'll be the first thing just to secure your time place. And then that gives you 12 months to try to gather any information that you need to support your claim. Some of the things that you're going to need your veterans EC file or your veterans medical records. If you don't have that, you can order those records. Now, it normally takes about 6 months to a year for your records to come, but go ahead and order them. And it's a form called SF 180, Standard Form 180. And you order that, it goes through the archive department, and then they'll mail you a disc with your medical files on it. Once you do that, if you do not have a VSO in your area, such as the American Legion, VFW, Wounded Warrior Project, what you can do on your own is just pull your records and itemize all of your records from disability. So put all the shoulders with the shoulders, the neck with the neck, back with the back, and so forth. Now, when it comes to musculoskeletal disabilities, there is a rule that the VA has called the Chronicity Rule, and it states that you must have a disability for 6 months and beyond with residual effects. And what that means is if you went to sick call on January 1st, and then you went to sick call on February 1st, but did not go to sick call again until November 1st, that covers a 6 months period. But then the residual effects is to show that I'm still having problem with that same area. Once you do that, then you can file your claim on your own. And the easiest way to file a claim is to go through eBenefits, upload those forms. But if you don't have any computers or anything like that, you'll have to download a VA form 21-526 easy form, and that is the application. You fill that application out, add all your medical documents to go along with it, and in the disability portion, just highlight all of the disabilities that you want to apply for. Submit that. Now, what I recommend, keep a copy because you never want to send your original. Submit that. That way, if it gets lost in the mail, or you can fax it. And if you want to fax it, the fax number is 844 531 7818. Fax that off, it'll go to the scan site. Once it goes to the scan site, within a 30-day period, the VA will send you a letter or notification that you have a compensation and pension examination. Once you go to that compensation and pension examination, completes it, then it's going to take about an additional 30 to 45 days or up to 60 days for them to rate you. The only time that will take outside of that is if there's some complications where they need some additional opinions or some more documentation. But normally, within a 90-day, 120-day process from start to finish, you can have your benefits. And so that'll be the easiest thing for you to do. But I will tell everybody, always seek professional help because this can get a little tricky. And you can go to these agencies that have qualified personnel to do the job. And once you do that, I'll tell you, it's beneficial. And the last thing that I'll say about filing a claim, the reason why I believe that it's so important to file a claim is not necessarily for you, it's for those that's coming beyond you. And I'll give you a case in point. There used to be a $500,000 small business loan for veterans. We'll qualify for that. So you had someone that's in Congress, they will go and they'll lobby for us. If we want to fight for the veterans, they need to be entrepreneurs. Let's do this. And then they fight for this loan, $500,000, but they never told us about it. So the money was granted, but the money was being held because we weren't utilizing it. And so now those same congressmen, they go back and say, well, we gave them $500,000 and they didn't use it. Let's reduce it. But since that money was earmarked, we want this portion of it to go to something that we want to do. So their agenda was to use the money for themselves, but they used the backs of the veterans to say we're going to fight for the veterans. So now it goes down to $350,000. If we don't use that because we don't know about it, it might go down to 100,000. And so I use that example as a reason to keep the door open. If we were using it, they would have to keep it going because we can justify why we need that $500,000. Same thing with veterans disability claim. If I don't file for my knee, if I don't file for my back, if I don't file for my shoulder, all of a sudden they're going to start saying, maybe they don't need this. So therefore, we can reduce this. And you can see there's certain disabilities that's being changed right now, like tinnitus and some sleep apnea and some other things that they're talking about reducing right now because a lot of people were not utilizing it. So the more that we fight and the more that we go and we open the door, we keep that door open for someone else. Whether or not we need the financial benefit, it's not about the money. It's about keeping that door open for generations to come. And so that's why I tell people, man, go and file a disability claim. You deserve it. You served your country. You got injured on the job. Let the job take care of you.
That's some good information. Is that small business loan still available?
Yes, it's down to 300. Let me rephrase it. The last time I looked at it, which was about a year and a half ago, it was 350,000. So I can look and tell you the exact number it is, but I believe that it's still, because I hadn't got anything saying that they changed it.
Yeah, I need to talk to you about that also. Also,
Okay.
one other thing, right quick. I am rapidly approaching the opportunity probably to take early retirement.
Okay.
So the situation is, you may not know this because it's dealing with the segue from the disability of a veteran into Social Security.
Okay.
Now, if I am permanent 100% disabled veteran and I apply for Social Security at an early age and I want to apply for full disability through Social Security, does that segue into that? Can they still use that, or is it something that I should be doing to make sure that that's going to be an easier process and not have to hire attorneys and so on and so forth?
Okay. Yeah. So I'll tell you about Social Security briefly. So the good thing about Social Security, it doesn't matter if you're 100% or 10% VA disability, because Social Security look at everything as a whole, because you'll know what is called service connected and non-service connected disability. So if you have any disabilities, now there's some disabilities, and use the word segue, so I'm gonna give you a segue disability for you to think about. The best segue disability for Social Security is migraine headaches. Uh, Migraine headaches for VA purposes, the max that you can get is 50%. But at that 50% marker, there is a phrase that they use. It says, unable to maintain work. It called it economic disturbance. That's what it calls it, but that's what it means, unable to maintain work. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because of just that 50% of that migraine, you can use that and by itself, and you'll qualify for Social Security. And I'll tell you the reason why. If I'm having headaches 3, 4, 5 days out of the week, they're lasting for several hours, or sometimes they bleed over into another day. I'm having the residual effects of light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, nausea. Who's going to hire me, and what job can I maintain? And so it's all about how you present your case. And you don't need a lawyer. I'll tell you that right now. I've done probably 50 Social Security cases, and I wrote it up for everybody else. They got it. It's all about the presentation. So if you have back issues, you might only have 10% for your back from VA purposes. But if you're 100%, you're not going to go back every year and say my back got worse. I'm already 100%, so I'm not going to go back.
Exactly.
But you're still seeing your doctor. So if my back locks up or I'm having spasms and I'm unable or if I have secondary conditions such as sciatica or radiculopathy, which is causing the numbness and weakness in my leg, now it's difficult for me to walk and get around. You put all that together in itemized format from highest to lowest, and then when you submit your disability claim to Social Security, it will be a win-win all day long. You know, and but to do that, like I said, getting ready to retire, you definitely want to start keeping that in mind, because once you retire, your funds go down and you want to maximize as much as you can. Now, I will tell you this: if you do get Social Security and you decide to go back to work, you can only make what is considered the poverty threshold, which is about $17,000 a year.
Right.
Now, Now I'll tell you, like the Social Security man told me when I first I did it years ago. He said, "But if your business make $1 million a day, your business can make $1 million a day, but
Which
you can't."
that makes sense. You know,
You
mine's
know,
going to be a little more unique because,
yes,
um, of course, I am a widow, never remarried yet,
right.
and I've never claimed hers. I could have been claiming hers since I was 60, but I haven't. But I have to do it before 66 years and 8 months,
Okay.
or I won't get it. But we'll talk offline about that.
Okay.
One
Yeah.
last thing, my son has his 80%. He just sent some stuff in, got it back. He's a paratrooper out of Fort Bragg. They gave him a rating for his back, but nothing for his knees. And one is you can't do one without the other. You can't land without knees. That's how
Hey,
far. But they didn't give him anything for his knees. I don't understand
yeah.
that.
You should ask him. You should ask him. Do you know what a PLF is?
Yeah, for
Hey,
sure.
but nah, the easiest way to do that. You heard me as we were talking. I mentioned something called a Nexus Letter, and I actually have one that's written that's designed just for him because I had a gentleman that I just wrote one for, and he got his back, knees, and everything else, and now he's 100%. So I can forward you that letter, and all you gotta do literally is change name and social security number, but the letter is designed just for your son. And of course, with the guy had his jump logs and everything else, so I incorporated, the jump logs, and I incorporated, the uh the speed that you come down, the occupational hazards, and you put all of that data into it. But once you do that, he'll get those knees.
Okay, we'll talk, brother. Thank you so very
Okay.
much. God
Hey
bless
man,
you.
thank you.
Godspeed. Like I
Yes,
said,
sir.
we'll be in touch, and we're definitely going to have to do this again real soon.
Most
And I
definitely.
can't thank you enough. And my blessings to you and your wife and your family. And we'll talk.
Hey, thank you. Now, God bless
Okay,
you.
thanks. All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.
Nice.